everyone, Chublu here, and it's been a while since I've made some Kamen Rider edits, and today we're looking at my favorite Reiwa Kamen Rider Geats. If you haven't seen the rest of these videos that I've produced so far, I've done tons of other Kamen Riders, probably see them on screen right now, you can always check those out. But I'm just gonna hop right into it, and if you want to see me cover even more Kamen Riders, make sure to subscribe, because there's more on the way. Now, Geats has a lot of suits and a lot of possible suits due to the whole mix and match feature of the Desire driver. I wanted to focus mainly on kind of redesigns, because new forms for this show, there's just so much potential there that I was scared to kind of touch that, so I was just focusing on redesigns for today. First up, I want to cover, I think, my favorite Kamen Rider form and name. Not my favorite form, but in terms of naming conventions, I think it's hilarious. And that's Kamen Rider Buffa Jamashin Fever Zombie. Just look at the Kemi card, that thing's insane. Anyway, this form is the in-series final form for Buffa, I guess. It's just his fever form with extra horns, and it's really just different helmet and cape. But that is his different form. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care for it. It's so big and bulky, and that's just, I just don't like the half zombie arm, half not arm when it's carried over to the legs, because it just feels so disproportional. Like, it's fine when it's just like the half, but like all of this, and then the cape making it seem like it's such a big, so much bigger than it really is, and the horns too, it's a lot. But this is also supposed to be his rider killing power, so he's indestructible. This is the form he chooses, and I'm like, I don't know, Buffa, probably could have done a bit better, but at the same time, he was still kind of on his villain arc, so I feel like it should be more representative of that. So put it to the side, and here's my slight redesign of Buffa Fever Zombie Jamashin. For one, you're going to notice the head, I took the eyes from his Jamato form, because they're so much more menacing. No color would stand out and give this menacing aura that Buffa really wanted at this point in the show. So I wanted him to feel just like this broken character ready to get all the riders. Those eyes, even though he's no longer a Jamato, he still puts the fear that the Jamato would put in players. And then for the actual chest assembly, I replaced all the orange with gold because, again, it says God rider killing powers. I feel like Fever would have more of an influence here, because that's, I know his normal Fever form doesn't have all those extra gold accents, but I think it's okay in this case, especially since he has extra gold horns that he doesn't have normally. His original purple half skirt, that's also gold now, just like the Fever side. I just think it'd be better if it was gold, and then the gold cape instead of purple, gold cape. It felt like a lot of different colors. Lastly, were the legs. Even though it doesn't really make sense, he's still using zombie for the bottom half, and it's his personal, one. And I think he would be like, you know what, let me touch that up just a little bit when I'm using it in this form. Obviously, he never revolves on in this form, so what he has now is just two full zombie arm legs. But the one for this form specifically has that yellowish gold on it, because it's exclusive to this form, and it's not like if he's normal zombie now he's gonna have those two legs if he does that. It's only for this specific form. And again, it just makes it more menacing because there's more spikes. It's even bigger, bulkier at the bottom. And overall, I feel like it's more balanced out, but that's kind of debatable. Again, that one arm really throws me off a bit. But I didn't change this one up too much because, again, it's very much just a quick and easy done form that they did for sake of the show. It's not really meant to be this new grand power-up or anything, even though it's kind of treated like it. Next, I want to get into our sponsors. If you all know Kamen Rider Jin, Jin has a very nice suit, very sleek suit, but his friends, Kekera, Kyun, and Betelba, are CG abominations, because why not? I, like everyone else, kind of wish they just had normal suits. So I used Shin as a base, and took all of their kind of like what makes each of their CG forms kind of special, and tried implementing that into Jin's base design and switch up the colors a bit to create all of their standard rider forms instead of these big grand monsters. So first up, we're gonna go with Kekera. Now Kekera's usually just this frog thing, and his panel comes in from the side. While I like his side panel, it didn't feel too different on the head, so I did mix it up a bit just to keep it more different. So here's the CG model, and I'll also have Jin there so you guys can have a good idea. And then here is my Kekera. So for the collar, it is shifted so it is on the side, it's all this green. The head fans out now. While you could say it's not really coming to the side, it is fanning out instead, giving more of a presence. And also a lot of past frog monsters in Kamen Rider actually had this bigger fanning out head for some reason. It's kind of just a common occurrence that frog monsters in a lot of these Toku shows just have very big heads. So I think it's just a little callback to that. His shoulder pads are both gone, so it's just very scrawny looking arms now, and again, it works with a frog. Because for some reason, the CG model, half of it just has this like green, I gave that to his arm. And for the feet, they are different. I went back to look at those set frog monsters and recolor the frog Orphanok. Yep, that is how far back I went. To give him more monstrous feet, because, you know, frogs, that's their staple, that's their trait, that's the thing people know them for. It would make sense if this frog-based Kamen Rider looked a bit more frog-like without having the full CG abomination. Anyway, next up we have Kamen Rider Belba. While she does get other suits later on, and I could have taken inspiration from that, I just want to focus on only the CG model. And she's this big, bulky Goliath, and I love that she has this form, but it does make it difficult because she is humanoid. So she does technically have, if you could really just shrink that down a bit and get yourself Belba, but I did want to mix it up a bit. And again, using Jin as the base, here's my Belba. For one, I have her ID going diagonal, of course, just like it does on her suit, but it is fully pink now, just because of the shading on that original Jin one. There's just so much blue. I just figured I would just make them all pink so their colors stand out a bit more. Her arm is fully pink, and she still has her shoulder pads. Her helmet is trimmed down just a ton, but she has little horns because I never paid attention to this, but her helmet has horns in her rider form. So I took Buffa's horns and just recolor them to fit. So she just has standard kind of proportions, but because Belba being Belba, I feel like her form would still try to be bulky and menacing. So I gave her Maximum Mighty's legs, kind of refurbished them a bit, recolor them of course, and now she still has a bulkier, larger presence, because those legs are massive if you see in the suit. And again, it makes a more menacing appearance, even though it's still Belba, and even though she will still absolutely get bodied by Buffa. Lastly, for the only one I feel like should have actually gotten a proper form, Kyun. Well, Kyun is definitely the most underutilized of the sponsor riders. I do really like the Chimera. For his form, I wanted him to still kind of have a lot of the elements that make up a Chimera, and specifically he's very focused on the lion. So his thing is coming straight down, so I was able to reshape them, and I have them sticking out more so they look like a mane on his head and his chest now. I want it to feel more like a lion's mane, so again, that's why it's sticking out a bit in the back instead of coming front more. He has two of the shoulder pads that are sticking out, so it gives more of a bulkier presence, and also the CG model has a lot of that padding, unlike all the others. I also gave him Oz's claws, they're a bit remodeled, but his forearms are now, his foreguards, I guess, are reshaped to be claws because he has claws. It seems really strong and menacing, but when you know the character, you realize it's more about the appearance and the look rather than what he actually is. And the only other thing I changed was the leg, because on Kyun's CG model, again, he also has that yellow on one side. So for this suit, I made it just slightly yellow on the bottom foot. I didn't want to add claws to the foot because it felt too much, so that's why I just only did the arms. But I do think it looks really nice. Here, I'll put them all side by side so you can see what the rider sponsors would look like if they were proper riders. Again, not CG. Now, we talked a lot about Kyun, but there's someone I feel is more important, and someone who I feel like everyone knows is getting multiple things in this video, and that is Nago. Kamen Rider Nago, the shafted member of the Geats cast, in terms of forms and suits, looking at you, Fantasy, because that's the one we're talking about. Her final form is only half a suit, and I've heard many arguments about why this is fine and why this is bad. I personally think I like Fantasy, but give her pants. She needs pants, so I gave her pants. And I'm not saying she uses a second buckle, I'm just saying, just give her a full thing of pants. Fantasy's a powerful form, and Oh, but Yago didn't have pants. So what? Who cares? Doesn't need pants. It's fine. Anyway, so here's the original on the left, and here's mine. What I did was I took Beat and recolored the legs to make a new suit. So the stripe now goes down. There's no gray. It is now that full gold orangish stripe. The Beat speakers are now just extra thigh armor, and the bottom of the legs are trimmed down a ton, but they just match the colors, and they're a bit more popping at the bottom, and it's not a lot actually like dangling. It's very much stuck to the suit here, because Nago Fantasy, at least in her fights, is very agile, moves a lot, so I don't want like any extra flappy bits that would just take away from the action, of course. So the pants are very much, it's more just a color pop and less of like, oh, there's armor, you know? So it's still very much focused on the upper torso. I did also touch up her helmet, because while obviously her like mouth guard is different for Fantasy, it's still just her generic helmet, and I kind of wish it was slightly redone. So I just added a bit of that blue that she has all over the suit now. Her eyes, the ears, little middle like red part, all of that is just blue now, has all the colors contrasting together. And again, I think it looks really nice. I really wish Nago had more care put into Fantasy. I know it was very much a rush job, and you can only harp on them so much about it, but I really think Nago deserved better. Now, for the only technical new form. So, say Fantasy remained this half suit that people hated. Here's my pitch for what I think they should have done, actually. And it's not give her pants. Rather, I think it's to tie both of her stories together. Because she has all this family drama at the end that ends up being Fantasy. But there's so much going on with Kyun as her sponsor and her finding love. And while you could say the family stuff ties up that kind of character arc, which obviously it does, I wish we got to see more of Kyun relegated to something like Jin was for Geats. Because he doesn't do as much as Jin does for Geats. And since he's the only other of the good sponsors, I wish he gave Nago permanently the Laser Raise Riser. Geats had it, had access to Laser Boost, phenomenal suit. I think we should have got Laser Fantasy. I know that's a bit extreme, but they retooled Fantasy a bit more so it can connect properly to Laser Raise Riser. And I know when you put it in the belt, it's like, whatever, you know, we can just excuse some of the sounds. It would be so sick if she had a proper combo of kind of the two biggest like factors in her story, and that was her sponsor and her family. It's really a combination of everything, and it's her full character. Rather than using my version of Fantasy, I took the original again and used that as the basis for this. And I focused on CG Kyun and not the one I redesigned. So this is fully if the two forms that were in the show came together. And I present to you Kamen Rider Nago Laser Fantasy. Now this suit is very similar to Fantasy itself. I don't think they were going to add a ton of new elements because it wasn't designed with that in mind, of course. I feel like this would be V-Cinema or one of those kind of forms where it's like comes way later. The main thing was the legs. I took, funny enough, Boost Marks 2's legs because they're very animalistic, and just gave them the colors of Kyun with that white and then the yellow claw on the left side. So she still has a bit of what makes Kyun special. But the other big thing is kind of these side skirts. They really stand out. They have a little bit of purple, yellow outlining them, but they're mostly white. The idea here is that these are just kind of like the wings folding down. They're just big guards on her legs, and they would flow with her combat and action, so it looked nice. It also covers up the bare thighs, so it looks like a more complete form, and it's not adding too much overall to the suit. I did also add a bit of repainting to Nago's helmet and the Fantasy chest plate. For Fantasy, just the middle portion, I replaced a lot of that gold with more white, so it stands out more, just like in Boost Mark 2, because I took a lot of inspiration from how that was redesigned. And the helmet, I just added white outlining to everything, because again, I feel like it really needed that to pop out more. And the eyes, I made the same color as Kyun. He has yellow eyes. Nago now has yellow eyes, even though before it was red. I still like the red eyes, but I do think yellow just matches more overall with the suit. And here, I'll put both of the Nago forms I made side by side. And I really want to hear in the comments what you guys would have liked to see for Nago's final form. And I don't just mean fantasy, but like doubled. Like, what do you think they could have truly done if we got like a Nago v Cinema or fan special, whatever the case? What could Nago's power go? How could it go further? Where could they expand on her character, elements of like beat or fantasy, and like those ideas? What could they have done? I would love to hear in the comments. And heck, I might do a Geats Part 2 where I take some of those and mix it up a bit. But yeah, those are the 6 forms I did today. A lot of redesigning, but I'm very happy with all of these. It was a lot of fun looking at all the Geats Riders again, because it's a phenomenal cast. I love the show. The suits are great. I really don't have any complaints about Geats or the suits, so it was a bit hard picking some, but I mean, I really just had to do this to give Nago some respect. That was really the main point of this video. The rest were just additions to pad it out. Anyway, let me know what other Kamen Rider seasons you'd love to see me take a shot at redesigning or some other franchises, and I wish you a lovely day.